Welcome to the 5am podcast, where we bring you insightful conversations with thought leaders and influencers who are making headway and some waves in their callings. Today, we have a special treat for you, a slice of history, family, and the irresistible aroma of freshly baked pizza. We are thrilled to have Erica D'Arcangelo, the author of the heartwarming book, A Story About Pizza. Erica's journey began when she returned home to help her father recover from heart surgery. Little did she know that this act of love would uncover the rich tapestry of family history centered around their beloved pizzeria, a community cornerstone since 1960. From coal mines to pizza ovens, Erica's grandfather's story is one of perseverance, dreams, and the pursuit of a better life. Through old photographs and her father's tales, Erica pieced together a narrative that beautifully intertwines themes of legacy, community, and the warmth of home, all wrapped up in the metaphor of coal dust and pizza crust. Today, we'll explore how a simple dish became the embodiment of the American dream for countless Italian families. So if you can, grab a slice, sit back, and join us for a mouth-watering conversation. Now, before we roll that intro, please share this with your friends and networks. I know there are many who are going to enjoy this conversation. And two other things you can do while we're getting ready to start is give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast player. And if you really want to support the show, you can head over to buymeacoffee.com/5am podcast and drop a few virtual bills in the barrel. Now, let's roll that intro. Erica, welcome to the 5am podcast.
Thanks so much for having me as a guest.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. Pizza, of course, is my favorite food. And as you and I were talking about before I hit the record button, I mean, who doesn't love pizza? There's so many varieties, select toppings, of course, but it's great to have some pizza with friends, family, and even by yourself. There's just more to share all the time. So can you give us a brief overview of the inspiration that came to you to write this book, I guess, The Story About Pizza?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a career in marketing. I've done that my whole life. And my dad had heart surgery probably about 6-7 years ago. And I was living in Tampa Bay at the time. And my family, my husband, my daughter, and I, we said, let's go home for a year. So we decided to go back to Western PA. And my dad, was just recovering. And I said, hey, let's go to the pizzeria a couple days a week. It'll help you get out of the house. It'll give us something to do together. And I remember my dad at the time was so grumpy. He was like, I don't believe in marketing. So I said, I'll help you with your marketing. And I said, Dad, it's fine. I'll just go and I'll help you for free. And we'll just, spend some time together. And so it really started us on this journey of us driving in together 15, 20 minutes there, 15, 20 minutes the way back, recording content there, looking at all the memorabilia, and my dad just telling me so many stories. And then on the way home, he was always like very happy and like uplifted, talking to the customers and telling them the story of the pizzeria. And I just got really inspired to write the story of my grandfather and how he kind of got to America and found this place.
That's fascinating. Your grandfather's journey from coal miner to pizzeria owner, according to your book, is quite remarkable. How did his experiences in the coal mine really shape his approach to running a pizzeria? They sound so different.
I think they were really different. And the thing that, I talk about a lot is my grandfather was 9 years old. He was pulled out of school and he worked in the coal mines for the better part of his life. He saved his money, he kept everything, and he had a really humble beginning. And his dream was to make pizza. And so I think for him, it was so hard won, and it was so much work and so much time to really get the building and open up the market and open up the pizzeria that he really cherished it. And there was just like this very thoughtful, caring manner of like, this is my dream. And he wanted every pizza perfect, and he wanted the place to just run and to be clean and everything you would think would be in a very successful business. He had that because this was his cherished dream for 20, 30 years before he achieved it.
Wow. I can get a picture of that. Recently, my wife and I were in a city to our north, and there's a Italian supermarket that we like to go to, and we'll order some Napoli crust pizza, and it's delicious. And the staff, a lot of them are related, and you'll hear them speaking Italian around you. It's like the only English is the people come. Not everyone, even customers will order in Italian, and it's a great atmosphere. But before Christmas, we were sitting at this table enjoying our meal, and you could see the elderly gentleman who had started the store, standing in the middle of the store, kind of directing traffic almost, and just taking it all in. It was really quite something. So as you're talking about your grandfather and your father being at the pizzeria, it reminds me of this family from Calgary. Now, I like the phrase that you use, the coal dust to pizza crust. It's really intriguing to me. How does this metaphor encapsulate your family story?
Well, as I said, it started from a very humble beginning. It was from the coal mines in Wimber, PA, Berwyn White coal mines. From, a young man who started out as a boy, who worked in the coal mines, who slaved away for 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
He got black lung, the coal mines closed. And then he made this transition of like, how am I going to make ends meet for my family? And it was even bigger than that of how can I leave a legacy for my family so they don't have to work in the coal mines? And so he started the market, he started the pizzeria, and it just really evolved into much more than just like people eating pizza. It was really something he left for the family to survive.
Wow, that's big shoes to fill, certainly. So your book is described as historical fiction. How much of the story is based on real events, and how did you fill in those gaps?
Sure. I mean, as it was so long ago, I wasn't there. And so I
Of
had to
course.
do a lot of interviews with like my dad and uncles and cousins and, my grandparents. Like my grandfather passed away in 1999. So I couldn't really ask him. And he was very quiet. He never told me about any of this, like my father had told me. So I had to really just imagine a lot of areas. Like there were some stories my dad told me that he had heard from my grandfather or, grandmother, but I had to fill in the blanks, I guess.
Yeah. Legacy is a great word, and it's something I know we talk about here in our home, and with other people, even people that I work with in the industry, we talk about legacy. How many people living today now have come from your grandfather?
You mean like family wise?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
A lot. There's a lot. I mean, we had, let's see, my grandfather, they had 3 kids, and then we have 5 kids in my family. And then my uncle has 2 sons. And then my aunt, she had 3 kids. She has one living right now.
Of course.
And and then everyone also had, like, my siblings are now just starting to have kids. So now we
Yeah.
have babies.
Nice.
So we have a big family, not to mention, my grandmother's family, she was from a family of 13. My grandfather had 3 brothers. They all had their own families. So
Yes.
sometimes Christmas Eve, we'd 40, 50, 60 people it's just a normal thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. The reason I ask that is because of legacy, and it's is memories in people's lives that are continued through the generations. I think you mentioned Christmas. There's a story, an account, let's say, in your book about a Christmas Eve at the pizzeria. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Christmas Eve was very special. And the reason why is because with us being Italian, it was the Feast of the Seven Fishes.
Yeah.
And so we had that. I mean, that was something that, you ate fish on Christmas Eve in Italy. Like that was the tradition there because you weren't supposed to eat meat on Christmas
Right.
Eve. So there were just these signature dishes that my family made that we had every year growing up that actually we still have now that my dad makes. And my second novel is about Italian Christmases.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. And it's good that it keeps on going. And when, we're very future focused in our society, and it's not that often where we can think back to those generations.
Wow.
And certainly in North America, we have trouble fathoming all the people that came before us. Can you talk about how this experience of your grandfather was so transformative amongst the family members? And was there a uniting because of this?
definitely think that it is the thing that unites the family. Because, at 8, 9 years old, all the grandkids were working in the pizza shop. My grandfather's paying us 10 cents a box to fold boxes.
Nice.
As we grew up, we were, bussing tables, doing dishes. We were saucing and cheesing pizzas. We ended up, when you're older, you're allowed to run the ovens and waitress and run the cash register. So it was like where our family was. Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday. We were all there working together. And then Sunday, we're eating together. So it was the way we were brought up. It was the culture. And I think it taught us a lot about hard work, sticking together as a family, building a team, having a team. Because there's days where, no, we didn't always get along. There were days where there was arguments and this and that, but it was learning how to resolve those arguments and continue being a family and to love each other despite our differences.
Right. Yeah, it really is kind of a forge of adversity to bring people closer together and teach those skills. You mentioned that you were helping your father revitalize the pizzeria, and that led you actually to uncover your family history. What was the most surprising discovery that you made during this process?
No, there were a couple. The funny thing is that I didn't actually know that my grandfather was pulled out of school and worked in the coal mines. I was really surprised about that. The other thing was that, and I like this, that, my great-grandmother, she lived with my grandparents up until the time that she passed away. After my great-grandfather passed away, she went and lived there. And I like the idea that the family stayed together.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's almost like one of the lies of modernism is kicking generations out of the house and sending them off somewhere else. Can you talk a little bit about the value of that intergenerational cohabitating or living together?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of preference, but I personally really think it's a good thing. Like, I have a child, she's very independent, but I'm definitely of the mind of like, you can stay here forever.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, but that's how my grandparents were. It was like, you ever need a bed, you ever need food, if you ever need anything, they were there no matter what. And I
Right.
really admired that, especially as I got older and I faced my own challenges in life. It gave me stability to know, like, I have a family that, this is my foundation.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And your book touches on themes of legacy and community. How do you see these themes playing out in, let's say, other family-owned pizzerias across America?
I mean, the community and the loyal customers are what makes these pizzerias successful. And like, I have my own pizza podcast and I talk to family-owned pizzerias. And, the appreciation for the people that go in and support these businesses is just amazing. Like, I know with our business, there are people that they're great, great-grandparents have gone in there and eaten. And you have now the great-grandkids who were there having parties and having anniversaries and celebrations. And then my dad will say, oh, this is the great-grandson or the grandson of this person who knew your grandfather. And the loyalty is just, it's a generational loyalty, which is so beautiful to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of reminds me hearing the story of your grandfather and your father. There was when my wife and I, we used to live on Vancouver Island here in Canada, and there's a city called Victoria, and one of the staple restaurants there is Romeo's. And my banker was the grandson of the two gentlemen that started, or one of the two gentlemen that started it. And he was telling me their origin story of leaving Italy. They came to Canada. They wanted to start a restaurant. They scrimped and saved and lived in what we would consider not quite squalor, but very, very Spartan accommodations. And the two brothers had enough money to either pay their rent or buy a restaurant, or not buy a restaurant, but lease a space for a restaurant. So what did they do? Being good Italians, they wanted this restaurant. They actually moved out of their place. They slept in the restaurant. That was their home, main floor restaurant, keeping warm by the heat of the ovens.
Wow.
And that's how they built up their chain of restaurants. And so my banker, he said, I'm working here for now, and I have my degree in finance, but, within the year, next year, I'm going to be, managing one of the family's restaurants. And I thought, wow, what a great legacy that these two men put in. And it led me to think and contemplate the perseverance and resilience that it took. Can you talk a little bit about what you saw in your own family in regards to perseverance and resilience?
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of sacrifice. And as a kid, I didn't really notice it. But now that I look back, my grandparents had a very similar story. My grandfather saved the money, he bought the building. They lived in the building. My grandfather built, there's apartments on the top floor. He renovated that, built that out, and then basically had, my grandparents lived in one and they rented the other two. And he was always like thinking of ideas of how he could do better, make things more stable, support the family better.
Wow. So did your grandfather have a favorite pizza?
Okay, this is so interesting because my grandfather liked his pizza really well done. And
Okay.
so what he would do is we would always have a pizza that was on the board that people would just grab slices that were
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
if I'm filming content now, I usually have a slice of pizza in my hand and I'm eating it like as I'm filming content. So he would take the pizza from the board. He'd take like 2 slices, he'd stick it right in the oven, and he'd cook it to almost to the point where it to me looked burnt. But that's how he
Nice.
liked it. He liked it really, really crispy. And then he would take it out and he'd put like sometimes he put green peppers, a little bit extra cheese, and he would eat it like that. And I always remember him like crunching into this pizza
Love it.
and him liking it, but me always being like, this pizza's black, but he seemed to like it.
I used to, when I was younger, I used to always order my pizza well done because I like that dark bronze color of
Yep.
the cheese and the crunch of it. And a lot of places wouldn't do that because they're like, well, we don't want to burn the pizza and then you're going to complain. And there's just something about that well done pizza. And so how about for yourself? What is your quintessential best pizza?
The traditional tray, the original 1960. My grandfather was the first one. It's just the plain pizza. It's Abruzzo style. It's rectangular, 15 slices. I've been having that my whole life. Every time I go there, I get it. We have another one called a Mike's pie, which is like a thin and crispy pie. So every so often, my dad will make me like, it's not on the menu, but my dad's name is Emery, so we call it the Emery Special.
Okay.
And he'll do like, it's hot peppers, black olives, a little bit of salami, pepperoni.
Nice.
And he'll
Wow.
make that one for me. And I like that one too.
So good.
So good.
Love pepperoni, salami, mushroom, green pepper, and olives with tomatoes on the top after it comes out of the oven. That is this Michael's favorite pizza.
Sounds great.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's good. I'm getting so hungry. Ladies and gentlemen, for me it's 9:30 in the morning. For our delightful guest Erica, she's just about lunchtime. So I'm sowing seeds of pizza for lunch.
Yes. And it's working.
Good, good. I do let's diverge a little bit more. So is there kind of rivalries? We won't yeah, I was thinking of Chicago deep dish. I spent some time in Chicago and loved that deep dish style pizza. Let's talk crust because I got to get back to your book, but I'm really thinking about lunch now and pizza time. So, what's your take on the best crust and why it's better than the others, maybe?
Okay, well, there's something about the deep dish pizza with like the thick, like the almost like the cheese crust that is so good. That's my husband's favorite pizza. But I will
Awesome.
tell you, my favorite pizza is definitely ours, and it's not super thick, but it's not super thin either. It's my favorite crust. I don't know why. I can't like, I guess I'm right in the middle.
Yeah. Well, that's great. It's when you have good pizza, you know it. And it's
Mhm.
almost like a moment where you just have to sit back and savor what you're experiencing. And there's so much kind of battling over nutrition and what you should eat and what you shouldn't, all the rules that we hear. But when you know what goes into and that you can tell, like how people say, well, what's so good about this? And they'll say, well, it's the love that went into it. Can you talk about your grandfather and your father's love that actually went in, like love for the community and love for family?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think that is what makes a place successful is that care and that love. And I know my grandfather had it. Like as a kid, I would watch him.
Yeah.
He was up all night, like manning the coal furnace. He was making sure the building was intact. When the pizzeria was open, he was going, making sure the exact right amount of cheese was on the pizza. Like since day one, we made our own fresh dough every single day, grated the cheese, made the tomato sauce. And to me, that's like the key of eating somewhere and really having not just a meal, but an experience is the care that goes into those ingredients.
Yeah. So I'm not going to ask you for any trade secrets. Is there kind of like a trifecta of ingredients to go into some pizza sauce?
I like to keep it simple. San Marzano tomatoes is always for me the go-to. Fresh basil. I love fresh ingredients, fresh parsley.
Yeah.
Just all those.
And it's easy to make too. The reason I'm bringing this up is because it's, ladies and gentlemen, I realize the convenience of the stuff that comes in jars that's pre-made in a factory somewhere, over 1,000 square feet of manufacturing space, and they're putting sauces together. But can you talk about how easy it actually is just to make sauce in your kitchen for your family?
Yeah. So, what my family does, we have a little bit of I don't want to say it's like a cheat, but my mom is a master gardener.
Okay.
So she grows tons of San Marzanos and peppers and zucchini and all kinds of amazing stuff. So by the end of the summer, we have so many tomatoes, we don't even know what to do with them. So all we really do is we just roast them in the oven. And then once they cool, you peel them and then you crush them. And we do like a fresh tomato pie, or we can use them for pizza. You can freeze them. So I personally when I see San Marzanos, I immediately am like, get them. I roast them if I'm not home. And I'm always, in Western PA in August because I want the fresh tomatoes.
Yes, that's awesome. Well, let's circle back to your book, because now I'm really getting hungry and I can't have lunch yet for a little while. So your book definitely highlights the importance of storytelling and preserving family history. How do you think other families could engage in in this same kind of practice?
I think it can be really simple things, enjoying a meal together, just working together, also having patience and kindness with one another. There's definitely people in the book that you see that are not like that. And then in life, there's people like that. You're going to meet all kinds of different people, but almost learning from that. I know in the book, great-grandfather was not the same person as my grandfather, but I always saw that my grandfather was very patient and he was very kind and he was just very soft-spoken and grateful. And those were to me very important things, especially if you're not really taught that growing up all the time.
Yeah.
And to still be able to manifest that.
So how has growing up in an Italian-American family influenced your perspective on food, family, and traditions?
It's really made food, family, and traditions really the center of our life. Of just really loving, caring about your family, eating good food, keeping family traditions alive.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. And it's been a great conversation so far. How can our viewers and listeners get in touch with you?
Well, they can go to astoryaboutpizza.com. If they type into Google or any search engine a story about pizza, you'll get all the listings where you can get a hold of me, but that's probably the easiest way.
Right. Now, has the local community's relationship with Dark's Pizza changed over the years, if at all?
I think that more and more people have supported us and more people have come in, especially because we have our TikTok account.
Yes.
And so as we had the evolution of that, and then we had support from At Pizza on Instagram, and just having people who have supported our family business has really helped to not only help us serve our local community and really be in the local community contributing, but also to be able to reach people from all over who come in from seeing it online or doing pizza tours. And we really like that.
Yeah. Now, your website actually mentions an upcoming series about family-owned pizzerias in America. Can you tell us more about this project and what has inspired it?
Absolutely. So what's inspired this project is definitely my family's pizzeria. And on our YouTube account, we have the teaser for that series. Okay. And what it will do is it will just basically we'll be able to go and really hear about the different stories of these pizzerias. And right now, my podcast, I interview a lot of family-owned pizzerias, but this will be more of a narrative story of that place versus just the interview.
Nice. So if your grandfather could see the pizzeria and your book today, what do you think he would say?
It's funny because I was just writing a post about this the other day
Okay,
because, just putting a post out about the book. And I really think he would be surprised, but also very proud.
good. That's awesome. And it's probably a fulfillment of what he was going for
Yeah, I
by
think
the
so
sounds of
too.
things.
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
very humble. So I think in a way he would be like a little bit surprised, but I think he was always proud of us, like, his grandchildren. Like he was
yeah.
very, very supportive.
Nice. Do you think that, did he talk about like the first pizza, the first customer, those kinds of firsts, and instill something from those lessons in the family?
My grandfather did not say a lot of words. Like he was very, very quiet, but he would say things like blood is thicker than water, or he would just say things about, it's very important to work hard. Like he would give like little almost wise like
Yeah,
tidbits of information
yeah.
without going into like any kind of an explanation, but you almost would just listen to him because he just didn't say a lot.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Erica, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about your family and my favorite food.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on.
It was my pleasure for sure. And I want to thank our viewers and listeners as well. We appreciate you joining in on this conversation. And if you haven't already, please help us grow the channel with a like, share, and subscribe. But more importantly, share this conversation with your friends and your network. Who doesn't love pizza? They need to hear this story. They need to see the content that Erica and her family put out. One more thing you could do for us is remember to give that 5-star review for on your favorite podcast player for 5 a.m. podcast, and head over to buymeacoffee.com/5 a.m. podcast. Thank you all for your support. Thank you all for sharing and caring for 5 a.m. podcast and for our guest content. Until next time, may you seize your day and enjoy those sunrises and sunsets. I'm Michael Clausen.